Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this evening of discussion, organized as a part of the summer school of the Eurometropolis Lille-Kortrijk-Tournai, a blue space in transition. I already thank the team of La Condition Publique for its premises and technical support, which allow us to share this exchange both in face-to-face and in our social networks. The subject of the discussion tonight is transition. So this term, understood as a way to pass from a state to another, is recurrent in the contemporary discourse and seem to concern a major part of our societal construction. We heard a lot about ecological transition, energy transition, and territorial transition. To address the issues and get in question related to land use planning in an ecological way or in a social approach, we welcome tonight two guests, Paola Viganò, good evening, who is an architect and urban planner, professor at the University of Venice and at the Polytechnic School of Lausanne. In 2019, she founded the agency studio with Bernardo Secchi, who is now internationally renowned as for the urban and territorial projects. It is at the origin also of the Blue Space project within the summer school is about. Their project also supported by research and theorization approach through books on the diffuse city, the horizontal metropolis, and the idea of the project as a producer of knowledge. In a second time, we also receive Feda Wardak, who is an architect, constructor, and an independent researcher. He is currently in residence at the Condition Publique for a project called Bel Endroit in collaboration with some residents of Roubaix. His works reveal the water as a common and the canal as a potential way to people meet together. He considers his project, or whether his research, as a process which he transmits in an artistic approach. He showed an interest in the material, the assembly of material, and he convoked a field approach to be part with the community in place. So before I will give the floor to you, I would like to point that a time of question and answer will be offered at the end of the two presentations to discuss with our guests. So from a territory to a territory in transition, Paola Viganò, I give you the floor to do your presentation.
First of all, let's take out the mask. I have too many objects. So I have to use also this one. Okay. So let's take out also this one. Thank you very much for this invitation. In fact, I'm quite happy to be back in the blue space of the Eurometropolis and to see many friends here. Karel, I'm so happy that you are here, and all the others. So I've been asked to speak of water. So, because we are in the blue space of the Eurometropolis, and I would like to take this position that through water we can understand maybe some very important direction for this transition that is more and more being observed as a wider movement of change that is not just connected to ecological, but also clearly with very profound social and ethical implications. So my first statement is to say, let's start from water. And water, as you see here, the title, water as a subject or the water subject. So what if we consider water as a subject and not as an object? What kind of shift this can produce in the way in which we reflect on the city we design cities. I will use several experiences in design projects to bring certain ideas and certain positions that you see synthesized here about the alliances we have to construct when we work with water, the possibility to read territorial rationalities, to look at climate change not just as a threat, but also as a moment of imagination and of invention, reflecting on the type of structure for the contemporary space that is not probably the same structure that was imagined for the modern city, the capacity of water to be the main agent of design, and finally some reflections about the transition that I leave for the end. So my first case is the city of Antwerp. Antwerp is a water city by tradition, by its position along the Scheldt. And in the work we did many years ago with Bernardo Secchi on the plan for the city, we took the water, well, not just the main river, but also all the tributaries of the Scheldt, as an occasion to reflect on the structure of the city. So in fact, instead of then following, I don't know, just the main roads, highways, etc., the idea that maybe there is another type of infrastructure that can also organize the urban space. But what is interesting is the story of water. In Antwerp, for example, water has been, the natural, let's say, water courses have been completely modified from the Scheldt to the small water courses that disappeared, to the artificial systems related to fortification, related to the harbor that becomes a kind of parallel water body, parallel to the Scheldt. And as you see in the Flemish painting, the water is also a social place where people meet, where you cross the water, you go along the water is giving you a trajectory. So you understand that there are practices along this water infrastructure. And we start to enter this complexity that water has constructed inside our territories. Water and the manipulations of water have constructed artificialities that today become more and more complex. And when we design cities, we meet those complexity. And here, this is in this water city image. We made a map that tried to synthesize all the different aspects related to water. I have not time to enter in all the detail, but you see, for example, the question of the protection of the city from the raising water level of the Scheldt that related to climate change and to the sea raising level. That will put in danger the center of the city. So the city is now realizing a system of protection, and we have worked also on that. And the second is a project we are realizing, we are designing in this moment. That is this piece is a dock of the harbor that will be severely amputated, let's say, by the new ring, the new tunnel of the ring. So the complexity, the question of the complexity of working with these artificial systems. In the case of the case in Antwerp, we are talking of 1 meter of difference. Today, there is a level of the case, as you see there, but there is already a wall. This wall is more or less 1 meter high. In the future, we need to add another meter. So seems nothing 1 meter, but when you, in a city, you put a wall of 2 meters, then the relation between the ancient city with the river will change dramatically. So there was a competition and we didn't win this competition, so of course, but we were second. So let's say there is still the idea that we were not so completely out of mind. And we reflected on this very interesting problem from the architectural point of view. What does it mean to have a line, continuous line that has to remain at the same height, 9.25, that's the safe height. And this is more than 6 kilometers long. So what is this level that you have to maintain for this linear space? And this is a very interesting architectural question. And we imagine to maintain a big part of the existing case, because the cays are first of all, a cultural space. The city was organized by this space, and to have the higher level only in some parts, and episodically gardens, parks were being higher, and then they were in fact enough to protect the city. But there is a continuity of this level. You can never have a whole unless you imagine to have temporary elements, barriers. So this continuity really designed the project. And we were using these green masses. In this sense, our project is different from the one that was that won. That, on the contrary, proposed to transform all this space in a green area. We thought that the flexibility of the case, so that are in stone, that you can do whatever you want because it's really a very flexible space, was a quality for a city. You can, whatever event you like, there were so many things happening on the case. So we thought that it was important for the city to maintain this flexibility and not simply to make a green dike. But let's say this is the concept that was preferred. The second space is here. So this is a dock. Here we are close to the Albert Canal, a very important canal going towards Liège, very industrial. And we are also along the ring of Antwerp that is now inside very big projects of covering this ring. And we have won 2 of the parks that will be realized on top of this capping. So one is here and the second one is here. Now, this space where the ring will be put underground, where today you have a big viaduct, where you have a canal on one side, where you have a dock on the other side and a system of canal, was in the past this mouth where 2 valleys, the 2 skein valleys, so this is the valley of the klein skein, of the small skein, and this is the valley of the grote skein, of the big skein. They were meeting here, exactly where the dock is situated and where the canal was then excavated. And that has completely transformed. But something remained in the memory of the city, the name of this place, Tuemont, so the 2 mouths. But it's also called at the end of the world. Now it's like something distant. So an extreme fascination for this point. And the transformation, you see, the klein skein was completely destroyed by the new canal. Now there are some pieces of the small skein. The grote skein became part of a park. Now this park, we are really pushing to bring this park into the city. And here you see also the dock. And say there's different types of water that can be used to make a new type of landscape. This is the project. This is ongoing, so it's not the final. But what I want to highlight is the presence of this water. So the Grote skein that is arriving from here. Here there will be one park dedicated to the skein. We reopen it. So all this is where today we have the viaduct. Today there is a big viaduct, the highway viaduct. This will be dismantled. So we reopen the skein and we bring the skein to the Twee-Mond, so to the two mouths. Of course, there is a canal now there, so there is not the small skein, but nevertheless, we bring this, and this is a reopening of the river, of the water course, arriving into the canal. Then we propose that along the canal, we organize a space that is in Flemish, vooroever. So it's the kind of transition space that you have before the water, a wet space where you have a specific ecology. And this will be parallel to the canal, but exchanging with the canal. So say the ecology will consider this exchange. A part of the dock will become swimmable. So we will purify the water so that here you can imagine until 1,000 people can swim all together, so which is immense. And the rest of the dock will not be swimmable. But a part of this good water that will come from the leakage of the tunnel that will pass underground. So the tunnel will nevertheless leave some water percolate inside the tunnel. This water has to be pumped out in any case, and this perfect water is pure water, no pollution, nothing. So you can use this water that in any case has to be pumped out to feed both the swimmable and the water playground. So this is to say that the water is really designing this space and organizing this space. Here you see the different entities that I named before. So the opening of the skein, the swimming dock, the vooroever, and the Twee-Mond, the water playground. Quickly, I go through some of them. So here you see the reopen, for example, of the skein. You see in which conditions we are constructing, opening up a small water courses. This is something, when I see these sections, I think that we are discussing of something that is different from the normal idea of nature. No? This is, I would use the terms of Arturo Escobar. This is a techno-nature. No? It's a nature that is the result of this intermediation, of this mediation with the technical aspects and infrastructure aspects that are there. And our cities are this today. Every single space we are touching, especially if we look at water, needs a reflection on nature. What is nature? What type of nature? Is this really nature, or is it something that is an invention of nature? And in fact, you see here the way in which we try to correct certain problems that we might have in the future. For example, erosion of the banks or the quality of the underground. And then it will be something, we hope, something like this. On one side, there is the big sport palace with a logistic space that can be used also for other purposes. We hope also for some, say, social purposes. We have the new bicycle paths that are asked to be as fast as possible, so detached from the ground. And this is also for me another problem. We are creating another layer of infrastructure that will make the city even more rigid than what it is today. But nevertheless, this piece of nature, reconstructed nature, will come. And close to it, there is the capping. In fact, as you see now, here we are on top of this incredible system. And then we go towards the dock, and on the dock we organize towards the dock kind of urban beach where people can swim. So that's the part of the swimmable dock. So you understand that there is a really a high level of complexity, which means also a fragility of these projects. So we have to, I think the notion of techno-nature is important in the sense that it obliges also to reflect on the rigidity of these systems and how you can fail. In fact, we are very scared of failing something. Imagine the water is not clean enough. Imagine that when it's flooding, the water course is not big enough. Imagine how many things could go wrong. And at the same time, there is this potential of reconstructing nature, of making pieces of nature that were not there anymore. The Voruver is another experimental space. Nobody really knows what will come out of this. You see, there is the canal on one side, the bicycle path, and the pedestrian space, and on the other side, so you walk in between two waters, the water of the canal and the water of this wetland, that where dynamics, say natural dynamics, will shape this space. We don't know exactly what will come out, but what we know is, for example, that we need to use here underground a layer of clay, because otherwise the sandy soil is too permeable, and then we would not have the wetland. So we have to prepare in a way that a wet area can be realized and can live, and then what this wet area will become exactly, which type of maintenance, we don't know exactly. We are discussing with the city services, with the green service, because it's not evident. If you have to go there to cut, not cut, you leave everything developed, etc. But these are also integrating the city with new type of spaces. So this is the water playground. Again, here we need good water. This is for kids. This is shallow water. We have only, say, 50 centimeters of water because there is the capping, in fact. So here we have the problem. But what if we have a very sunny summer and then all the water is evaporating? Can you imagine the tragedy? So let's say this feeding has to be continuous of water. So it's an incredible mix of technicalities and of imagination, because you have also to imagine that if you go there, yesterday we were there with some people that wanted to make a video of this, but we were under the viaduct and we were saying, okay, you see here where we are under the viaduct, it will be like that. So of course it's even difficult to believe that you can get to that point. And personally, I always say, I don't know if this will be really like that. But the idea is to have a water at the lower and that are simply topographically in the lowest part and collect the water. And this is important because we are with a lot of soil that we have to reuse, and then there will be new topographies. So my first, let's say, reflection is that water design and urbanism have constructed a new alliance. Not only water design and urbanism, also water design, urbanism, ecology, hydrology, and all the disciplines that are related, but for sure to design in this condition of strong complexity needs this type of alliance. And we have to be able as a designer to discuss and not to bring the interdisciplinarity after, no, but to start together with the other disciplines and to conceive together this kind of projects. Okay, I see that I'm too long. So the second point is the fact that when we work with water, and here I show you a piece of the diffuse city very, very rapidly. We are in the dry plain of the metropolitan, let's say, territory of Venice, the dry plain, so where the water tends to infiltrate very rapidly because there is gravel. And there is a very dense network of canals that irrigate the plant, that bring water to agriculture. We used this lens, water, to read an urban phenomenon, so this diffuse city. And I thought, we thought at the moment that it was interesting because we were rapidly understanding why, in a certain way, the organization of space was that one, so diffuse. Because together with the streets and the roads, water and asphalt, as we said, they were clearly showing a type of isotropic network that was covering all the region, and where you could live everywhere, because the conditions of inhabitability, they were everywhere. You could access every space, and you could also have a safe space because water was organized, or a space with water because water was brought there. So again, I have not the time to enter in the detail, but the relation between the underground, so the lithology, soil formation, and the water is very interesting. You pass from very permeable areas in the north, so the dry part, to a very impermeable area just here because there is clay, and then there are the really lower land that are like polders where water is evacuated in mechanical ways. So studying water, we understand certain rationalities of the territory that would not be understandable without taking this lens. And we can say that in this case is water. I could say more or less the same thing if we take soil, for example, or other, let's say, fundamental elements of the territory. But the exercise is really to take the position of water and to follow the rationality and the logic of water. And this, I think, is something that we do, but not enough. We are always from our perspective, but for a moment, leave your perspective aside and jump into the water and look at the world with the water eyes. Try to make this, and then you start to understand what is the idea of the water as a subject. So really taking the position, you can take the position of the water because it's a subject, as you are a subject. You know? Then you understand how this water and the asphalt, they have organized this territory that is in a system that was not planned, was not in a plan, in an official plan, but it works. It guided this process of urban construction, and it created specific landscapes. In the dry part, there are a lot of gravel pits, because the gravel is economically interesting, unfortunately. So there is a lot of extraction still. And all these gravel pits, they at a certain moment they are abandoned, so they are like holes. And there are holes of different dimensions. The blue here, the pale blue, are gravel pits. You see just in a piece of the dry plain, there are many of them of different dimensions. The red one is the one on which we did a small experiment. So this is in the dry plain, the gravel pit abandoned. And you see that a specific ecology has formed in the lower part because it's more humid, because the soil is different from the other one. And then you have this small forest inside. And at the same time, this space can be used to collect water in the moment of flooding. So from the water course that is just to the north, through a small canal that is more or less already existing. You just have to add a small piece. And you can imagine to maintain eventually this lower small forest, because it's kind of precious, strange object, should not be there, should be in another part of the landscape, of the territory, but it is there because of the excavation. So again, you see this kind of this nature that since the Romans was called the second nature. So it's not the pristine nature, is the result of the work of man, and this is a second nature. This is from Cicero, from the Romans, this idea of second nature. And then in the Renaissance, there was the third nature that was brought as a the garden as the place where you can look at the other two natures and meditate on the two natures. So for me, it's interesting the relation between this very old notion of second nature brought by the Romans and the Escobar, much more recent idea of techno nature. So in fact, the techno nature and second nature, they share something, but second nature, we were very proud. No, I mean, in the Latin of Cicero, there is this proudness of having created a second nature. Humans can make a second nature. The agricultural fields, the organization of all the territory. Today, I think when we use techno nature, we feel a little bit more embarrassed. No, techno nature, there is an idea that we have lost nature, and there is this new entity that we don't know what it is exactly. Is the result of this hybridization with technology, with the infrastructure. So I think that there is something to think about this connection between second nature and techno nature. The result of our research or the hypothesis that we brought until the end is that isotropy is a very interesting character for a territory. Isotropy means to have the same conditions in all the directions. And this territory is really isotropic. And there are many reasons why we consider this isotropy something precious that we should not lose. We should not fragment. We should maintain this connectivity that is very, very, very wide for many reasons, including also political, let's say, political reasons, because you give conditions of inhabitability that are not the same, but of the same level, of the same quality in the different part of the territory. All these things have been investigated in many research, and here you see some of the books that are the result of that. But sorry, I didn't comment the statement that is related to this possibility through reading water to unveil territorial rationalities, to understand that territory contains rationalities and that we have to read them. Otherwise, our design is completely nonsense. So this effort of understanding territorial rationalities. And then once you have understood those logics, then you can imagine a multitask design. But if you don't understand how the territory is working, it will be completely unuseful. My third case is Paris, but maybe I skip this case. Let's go a bit quicker because otherwise I will not get to the end. Maybe just a word about this. So after having worked on the Great Paris, we continue to work and in this region, and we stopped at a certain moment on this meander of the Seine river. So Paris is more on the lower part. Paris is here. So this is part of the periphery of the banlieue of Paris. There is a community of several municipalities called Arc-en-Seine. And this was a meander that was really painted by all the Impressionist painters. So first of all, you enter into this world that is more imaginary, but is fundamental. The banks, the people, the boats, and how space was used, the space on the water. And then if you put also literature, so here we just put Guy de Maupassant with the Parisian novels, the Contes Parisiens. And here Maupassant was describing so nicely how people were using the Seine, the water. And he says that he was going to have a dinner. So from Paris, he was leaving Paris, Intramuros, going here with its boat, rowing to this place. And then he was deciding where to have a dinner, in which one of the villages along the Seine. He could have a nice dinner. Then he was giving back the boat, and he was coming back to Paris by feet. So let's say 6-7 kilometers by feet going back to Paris, when I had the moon on my head. So I think there is such a distance. Today, all this space is occupied, all the banks are occupied by the big infrastructures. So you cannot get to the river, you have no relation with the water. There are some schools of rowing in some smaller point, but nobody could imagine to make this. And I think this is a problem. Today, along this meander, there are poor people, so the red are the poorest, and a lot of logistics, a lot of infrastructures, a lot of this techno, say, aspect that is really making impossible a relation with the water. So then we propose several strategies, but let's say again some projects, some federative projects in this type of spaces where there is no continuity, where there is nothing in common. I mean, if you don't put your river in common, what are you putting in common? It's the same story as here in the Espace Bleu. We worked a lot on this idea of a space in common, this water space as a project that can federate larger entities. So on one side, there are the questions related to sport, the question related to traffic that are the most difficult, and then a relation with the big territory, because of course this is also related to the big geography. About the traffic, I'm not describing now what should be necessary, but it's a revolution to eliminate the traffic that is today on the Seine. It was such a revolution that we proposed, and we didn't succeed, I have to say, but we proposed to the politician to use the fact that in that year there was the Paris Agreement on climate change in Paris, to make really a big marathon, a big something on those roads. I mean, to give a signal, no? Because this type of projects, their problem is not so much a technical project, a technical problem, is really a cultural problem, that we understand that, for example, we have the right to approach the river. It's not possible that I cannot go to the river. I mean, there is something that is a kind of anthropological. We need this relation. I think that during the COVID, many people have understood this. We have forgotten about this relation we need to have with the rest of our space, of our world. I think it's a right to go to the river, to have an access to the river, to do what in the 19th century Maupassant was writing, to walk for 7 kilometers in the Greater Paris. We proposed to make a sidewalk of 7 kilometers in another occasion. But of course, you need really something that is going beyond design, is asking for a kind of political in the wider sense approach. Okay, yeah, the sport, and then the relation with the big territory. And maybe climate change and the new risk we are facing can be used as connectors. So connectors between, for example, the social and the spatial, between the political and the spatial, to profit in between, of course, profit of the awareness we have today for example, flooding risk. In Belgium, I think the summer has been very severe from this point of view, and climate change, to take them as a levies, no, for something that can change the way in which we look at things. 3 words about the common figure of the Eurometropolis. So together with Chiara, we worked some years ago, and we started from this important geographer, French geographer, Paul Vidal de la Blache, that was writing in his book, Tableau de la géographie de France, là est le trait commun. So there in the water system is the common trait of this territory. So our first hypothesis was the water as federation, as say, element fédérateur, so federative element. The second was that through water, we are working on a structure that we can say is not a strong structure. No, it's not when you put a highway, it's difficult now to move, and the highway will structure with the entrances, the exit. The highway is structuring and is there, rigid. No, water has not the same rigidity, is weaker. In fact, it has been destroyed, manipulated, transformed without any concern. So our hypothesis is, can this weaker element can structure the city of the 21st century? That is a diffuse, extended type of urbanization. I think yes, that water together with other aspects can really be one of these elements. And then, okay, what is water here in this region? It's not just the big canals, it's not just the water courses, it's also the water table. And this could be more coherent to this type of urbanity, no? That is extremely ramified and with many different qualities. So the three types of water that you probably have discussed at the beginning of your workshop, the big corridors, those are more the highways, the capillaire, so the capillarity of the system, the small water courses, and the underground water. And as you know, we organized several workshops with different schools, and they were really, this is today a piece of history. This is the old school of architecture of Tournai in the ancient monastery, if I'm not wrong. And we draw on the ground, we draw the espace bleu. You can recognize the main element. Working also on some water courses that are connecting several parts of this territory. For example, the Canal de Roubaix, in fact, and the Spier. Knowing that you need to operate on different strategies because you really cross different situations, and this is also what makes very interesting to work on this area. Introducing into the representation the water table, trying to conceptualize a little bit. So with Chiara, I think we were a little bit Chiara, but also Benedict. Sorry, Benedict was, this is more Chiara, but working with an hydrologist that was explained to us in short, simplifying a little bit, and then we hyper simplified in order to try to get an idea of how this could work. For example, here we are in Flanders, where there is practically no usable water table. That's a very important point, because this displays the project to the political or even almost a geopolitical level, because there are regions that are part of the Eurometropolis that don't have underground water, and parts that have underground water, parts that have polluted underground water, parts that have just a very small layer of surface water. And Flanders is in this situation. But one of the projects that I always like to remember is a project here in Roubaix, in between Roubaix and Moucron, so on the two sides of the border, where we were imagining kind of dissolving the borders and to work on the abandoned industrial site of Roubaix in connection with the Belgian side, and especially with the Flemish side that is looking for a new land to expand some industry, and to reconnect also the public transport on the two sides. And then to imagine type of industry and say of activities of production that could be really the best in terms of energy consumption, let's say really making the best out of the new situation. And we were thinking that this alliance between the three parts, the Flemish, the French, and the Walloon, could really make a very interesting project for the Eurometropolis, a true project for the Eurometropolis. And each time I presented these sketches of students, the comment has been often in the Eurometropolitan discussion, this is utopia. Okay, no, this is not utopia. This is possible, it's feasible, so it's not utopia. It's just that we are not used maybe to this. And this the map that I see also there. Conclusion of this part is that we should work more on this idea of weak structures, not just on those structures that are there forever, we think they are there forever, or they solve all the problems, or they are completely non-dynamic, static. No, we have to start to work with dynamic, weak, in fact, infrastructures and structures. And I think that this is much more coherent to the city we have than the idea of putting order, complete order, 100% order everywhere. I will go very quick also here. This is an urban project on a military abandoned area that was completely covered of concrete, infrastructures, etc. We work with a biologist on trying to understand the soils, especially the conditions. There is pollution also, but we were interested to understand what were the potential of those soils to, what were the degree of life, let's say, that is in those soils. And then we made a project that was not only using the white area, so where really there is no life, it was just a barren soil, but also where the new project could bring also new nature. So in a way, so this is the master plan that we are following. This is a project that is under construction since almost 20 years. So it's a project for almost 12,000 inhabitants and 3,000 jobs. So it's normal that it takes a little bit of time, and also that there were a lot of problems of pollution, of property, etc. So before starting, we took some time. And the two fundamental guidelines for this project were the soil aspect, so the balance of soil we had to construct, and also the idea of a common ground for all this project. And the second aspect was the water management. So this was one of the first projects in France to explore the possibility of open air water management, which means that you work with topography. So this was barren soil, let's say concrete. So we we broke the concrete, we reused some of the concrete for the new roads. We brought some of these materials also to make this topography in order to get to this balance between the cut and fill. And then we organized so here is the soil balance, and here is the water collection, because this land was, the nature of soil here is very impermeable. So it's really clay, and there are some quite severe laws that give you very small right to evacuate water from your plot. So you have in any case to maintain the water where you are, so inside your plot. Our plot was big because this is an urban project, so we could use the public space to solve this problem. And then we organized really a system of degrading from the very dry soil. So these are hills reconstructed with the materials we had on site, going towards the more wet. So here we have one of the wadis until the very wet area. So it's really kind of degrading type of humidity. And with water, designing with water means that also all the rest has to follow that. And here, for example, a big wadi with a path, or maintaining an existing pond, and so making this public space around. To the point that water here was really guiding and designing, in the sense that in a small valley, a very small valley that is inside the city, arriving almost to the station, we could reintroduce a small watercourse, and also collect the water arriving from the houses, the existing houses, so bringing this water down to the lowest part, and at the same time to requalify the space that is very small, and it is in between a train line, and there is this very articulated topography, and recreating something that was not there anymore. And each time when you work with water, you have an incredible new presence of vegetation. In a couple of years, everything changed, and there is this strength, let's say, of dynamics, of natural dynamics, and restoring, let's say, small lines of train, the small trains, and connecting the higher point with the lower point. But to collect the water means really big works, and then you have to model the land in order to have this space, and then our space for water. And this project was realized together with the incredible nature that was already there, partially the result also of the abandon and of the pollution. But where even in such cases, this becomes a very small dike, is a path, but becomes a very small dike, so you can accumulate water on the two sides. So every single element of the public space participate of this idea of designing, let's say, with water. In fact, that's my conclusion. Here, this water designs is really the agent that is designing. My last, finally, we got to the conclusion, is that this is an ongoing work we are realizing in Brest. So we are working also with another team that is working more starting from the public transport question. And this site it corresponds to this area in their drawing. So I think it's nice to see how, when you start from the perspective of water, here we started from water, how we see this territory, while if you start from the perspective of the public transport arriving and the requalification of the neighborhood, yeah, this line is there, but it's not fundamental. No? So the representation changes completely. It's not one correct and one non-correct. It's simply that we are really putting different aspects as priorities. So that's why I insist on the fact that if you take the position of water, you look at the world with the water eyes, you see different things. What we see here is, of course, a watershed, the lowest part, and the sub-basins. So these are the ridges, and these are the sub-basins. So you can divide the watershed in all those basins, and we have this lowest part where there are specific problems, and that, let's say, ask for different things. So this space is here, and is inside this guide plan, also plan guide, master plan that we have just concluded for the center of Brest Metropolis, the center of Brest Metropolis on the two sides of this river, that is a specific type of river called Aber in Breton. And the center of the city was completely was bombed and destroyed during the Second World War, so is a reconstructed city center. But what is very spectacular are these kind of small valleys, which create a specific ecologies, microclimate. They are absolutely magnificent. And we are working on one of these because there are problems that then are problems also for people of flooding. And as you see, this idea of feeling, you put buildings, you put infrastructures, you feel the ballon. And then, of course, there are questions that are raised. What is interesting is that we understood by also discussing with historians. We had a lot of very good workshops with all the experts. And we could understand that in the past, this was the watercourse had a lot of ponds, a lot of stagnant water. So they were really low point. And what is interesting is that today all the problems are exactly there. So everybody could say that building in those positions was a mistake, but in fact, this is what we did. And today there are constant episodes of flooding. And there is no solution. I mean, these are lower point, the lowest point. So there is not a solution. Unless you imagine to construct a lot of new underground basins, and the cost, if you cumulate all those costs, is around 16 million euros. So then we understand, we reflect on, is it correct to put 16 million euros to make all this new work? And the people working on the water in the service system in the metropolis, they have realized this map that for me is fantastic. So this map is showing which are the surfaces that have a potential to be disconnected from the network. So the sewage system. Today there is a sewage system that is a mixed sewage where you have rainwater and the black waters. The potential is related to having space to eventually to have this water to infiltrate or to stock. And what is even more interesting, because and then we get to the 74% of the surfaces as a potential has some potentiality to be disconnected from say very good potentialities or good potentialities. The 74% of the surfaces, and the 44% are public surfaces. So the point is, can we exchange, instead of those basins, underground basins, again, the strong infrastructure, with this weaker project? This is a weak project for sure, because here you have to discuss with everybody. Every single garden can give a contribution, but we can reverse the discourse and say every single citizen can bring a contribution. I think this is interesting. It's not like to be condemned and to take the water, but everyone can give a small contribution for the project of the transition. This is typically a project of the transition, where the transition is also social and not just ecological in abstract terms. So for me, this is kind of a new challenge that we hope to be able to go through, where there will be problems in the lower part, where we have to give a space for the water, for just a field d'eau, a line of water to pass eventually in some moments. So, okay, there is a market, there is a square, let's pass this water. Let's imagine this transparency to the water. But then we have all the rest, all the parcels that can give a contribution. And then we can imagine really social projects that are related to this. So we have proposed this to the politicians that were at the beginning, they were saying, okay, interesting, but this is not a priority. Of course, the priority are the strong projects, a project for the new railway station, for example, the project for the new tramway. I have nothing against those projects, but we need also this type of projects. And at the end of our pleading for this type of project, I think they understood something. And this is my last sentence, that cities can be socio-ecological laboratory for the transition. Because what we are facing is not just an ecological transition, as I said, but it's also an economic, it's a political, and it's a social transition. And in fact, is rethinking relation between life, space, and power. So that's why I use these terms, a new biopolitical project. Thank you very much. It's a little bit longer.
Thank you for this presentation. So now we are going to hear Feda Wardak about his work, and we will continue this evening in French.
So please, if you have the headphones, and maybe someone, or if you don't have the headphones yet and you would like to have some, you can still take some, because now we will have a French part, and so you can listen to the translation in English. Thank you.
Good evening, so sorry, I will do it in French, so I could be more precise. Alors, je vais essayer de présenter, de faire une présentation en 3 points. Le premier point va être une présentation assez rapide de la manière dont fonctionne la plateforme Amani1 que j'ai cofondée il y a 6 ans. Pour ensuite essayer de me concentrer. Le plus gros va concerner des projets notamment en lien avec l'eau en tant que bien commun, mais je vais essayer de donner une définition un peu plus spécifique à ce que je considère comme un commun. Et enfin, je vais terminer ou ouvrir sur ce que je fais à Roubaix ou ce que je vais projeter de faire sur ces prochains mois ou prochaines années. La première chose, c'est la plateforme Amani1. Du coup, moi, de formation, je suis architecte et en fait, j'ai étudié à Paris et à la fin de mes études, j'ai eu la chance d'avoir un groupe d'enseignants qui a su m'accompagner dans le fait que l'architecture n'était pas seulement un objet plastique, mais aussi d'essayer de comprendre quels espaces politiques on pouvait faire exister à l'intérieur de ces matérialités-là. Et donc, dès qu'on a été diplômé, on était un groupe d'amis, on s'est dit qu'il fallait peut-être faire exister la recherche de manière assez fondamentale dans notre travail d'architecture, mais pas uniquement une recherche d'un point de vue de la matérialité, ce qui existe souvent en architecture, mais une recherche qui convoque aussi des enjeux de classe sociale et d'ethnoracialité. Donc, c'est 2 points sur lesquels moi je travaille beaucoup. Et donc, lorsqu'on a monté Amani1, on était un groupe de personnes finalement qui étions, je dirais, les enfants légitimes ou illégitimes d'ingérences internationales qui ont eu lieu ces 30-40 dernières années, qui se sont retrouvés par des récits de famille à Paris. Et donc, on s'est dit que Amani1, ça allait être à la fois un laboratoire de recherche et une maison d'édition, de manière assez informelle, et en parallèle, un atelier de création et de production. Donc, je vais d'abord vous parler du laboratoire de recherche. Et finalement, c'est une douzaine de territoires à travers le monde sur lesquels on effectue des recherches depuis une dizaine d'années. Et dans la plupart des cas, quasiment, on se cantonne à l'idée de recherche. Je vais essayer de dire pourquoi. C'est très simplement, si je prends l'exemple, l'un des exemples les plus fameux qui existent dans les écoles d'architecture, c'est de s'intéresser à l'habitat informel. Mais dès lors que les architectes s'intéressent à cet habitat informel, ils tentent de le formaliser par des actions construites. Et donc, je crois que l'architecture, c'est aussi par moment le fait de dire qu'on ne va rien construire. Mais on va essayer soit de garder trace de savoir-faire qui, par le moment, par les enjeux de la mondialisation, tendent à disparaître par des nouvelles matières premières, des questions d'extractivisme qui commencent à exister ou d'épuisement des corps sur les chantiers. Et donc, finalement, ces territoires-là, c'est nos territoires d'origine aux uns et aux autres. Et la manière dont on travaille dessus, c'est au maximum de donner la parole aux personnes concernées. Donc, on travaille avec des réseaux locaux de chercheurs, d'artisans, de militants, de politiques, d'architectes, d'artistes, etc. Et on travaille sur ce qu'on appelle des enquêtes de terrain. Donc, moi, je travaille essentiellement sur mon territoire d'origine en Afghanistan, qui sont des zones tribales plein milieu des montagnes, c'est des endroits assez magnifiques, et sur les questions de rénovation urbaine à différents endroits en France, mais surtout sur le bassin parisien. Et donc, on est cette plateforme qui, à terme, fonctionne aussi beaucoup à travers un réseau de chercheurs qui nous envoient des contributions. Donc, on est un comité éditorial qui, derrière, publie des ouvrages. J'en ai un ici avec moi, qui est le second numéro, si certains derrière veulent le regarder, il est là, sur les politiques de gestion d'eau à travers le monde, justement. Donc, on avait travaillé 2 ans dessus. Et pourquoi cette recherche est fondamentale pour nous, puisqu'ensuite, elle permet de nourrir, bien entendu, notre atelier de création et de production. Donc, on n'est pas du tout concentré sur la question de l'acte de construire conventionnel en architecture. On ne se limite pas, on s'appuie sur tous les médiums possibles, donc ça peut aller d'une création chorégraphique, là, sur laquelle on a bossé, qui a été livrée l'été dernier, sur les enjeux de pression foncière qui s'exercent sur une forêt. Ça peut être des installations paysagères. Donc ça, c'était un jardin qui devait être détruit. Il y avait pour 100 000 € de gisement qui devait partir à la benne. Donc on a récupéré tout ça et finalement on a recyclé tout ça pour cette installation paysagère. C'est le montage de lieux. Ça, c'était un lieu de soutien à la création artistique qu'on avait créé avec un groupe d'habitants qui était concerné par une rénovation urbaine. Mais à la fois, le bailleur et la collectivité étaient extrêmement opaques sur ce qui allait se passer. Donc, ils ont décidé de prendre le droit d'investir les espaces publics qu'ils habitent. Et si le bailleur les poursuivait en justice parce qu'ils n'avaient pas droit d'agir sur ces espaces publics-là, eux poursuivaient le bailleur pour constat d'abandon. Et donc, à un moment donné, ils ont eu besoin d'architectes. Donc, c'est là que la connexion s'est faite. Et c'est plutôt à ces endroits-là que moi, je travaille où des dispositifs critiques sont mis en place par la société civile elle-même. Donc voilà, ça a vécu 2 ans, puis on en a été exproprié. Ça peut être la réalisation de films. Donc ça, c'est un film que je tourne en ce moment avec Romain Rampillon, qui est un ami réalisateur. Donc c'est l'histoire de 2 adolescents qui ont l'habitude de jouer dans des friches urbaines et qui d'un coup, les enjeux de pression foncière et de rénovation urbaine les repoussent toujours plus loin. Donc comment ces espaces qui ont été habités pendant 20-30 ans et qui ont été abandonnés par les politiques publiques sont reconquéris, mais finalement, ceux qui y vivent ou qui habitent, parfois en sont dépossédés. Et donc, c'est un film documentaire qui fait trace aussi de toutes les destructions qui ont lieu et comment ceux qui habitaient dans ces bâtiments-là, finalement, sont ceux qui sont employés pour la sécurité et le gardiennage de ce qui va être détruit. Donc, ça devient presque schizophrénique politiquement parlant. Et comment, du coup, la forêt, qui est juste en face de ces bars, devient un espace de refuge. Mais je vais passer vite. Donc, c'était simplement pour expliquer un peu comment la plateforme fonctionne, puisque derrière, en fait, cet ouvrage sur lequel on a travaillé pendant 2 ans m'a permis, moi, de réaliser pas mal de projets en lien avec l'eau, mais l'eau pas comme l'eau comme ressource, comme matière, comme sujet, et pas uniquement comme quelque chose qu'on regarde ou comme une infrastructure. Et donc, je vais prendre un cas qui, moi, m'a paru, qui a été quelque chose qui m'a pas mal bouleversé dans ma manière de voir la question des savoir-faire et la manière dont l'eau en ville pouvait être traitée ou quel droit on pouvait avoir sur le fait de l'emprunter ou de la toucher. C'est une ancienne carte de Téhéran. Et en fait, les axes qu'on voit, c'est ce qu'on appelle les kanates. C'est des systèmes d'adduction d'eau souterrain. En fait, tous ces chemins-là irriguaient autrefois la ville de Téhéran en eau. Et en fait, c'est des galeries souterraines qui vont jusqu'au nord. Là. Au nord, c'est des montagnes, en fait. Et c'est une pente extrêmement douce. C'est-à-dire qu'on creuse pendant des années un tunnel sous le sol. On part des terrains agricoles, des terrains fertiles. Et on va creuser. Et parfois, ça dure 100 ans, 150 ans. C'est plusieurs générations qui creusent ça. C'est des galeries qui ont aujourd'hui, pour certaines, 1000 ans, 2000 ans, etc. Et on creuse jusqu'à ce qu'on tombe sur une nappe phréatique perchée dans la montagne. Et ensuite, en fait, on a l'eau qui s'écoule en continu toute l'année. Donc, ce système-là, il est aussi présent en Afghanistan. Ça s'appelle le Corrèze. Il est aussi présent en Algérie. Ça s'appelle la Fogara, au Maroc, dans le sud de l'Italie, en Espagne, etc. Et alors, le laser. Bon. Lorsqu'on regarde l'Afghanistan, en fait, il y a un énorme massif montagneux qui est une branche de l'Hindu-Kush qui traverse le pays. Et en fait, tout ce massif montagneux est naturellement chargé d'eau par des nappes phréatiques perchées. Et donc, l'axe jaune qu'on voit au sud de Kaboul, moi je suis originaire d'une région qui est celle-ci. Et en fait, si on regarde, toute cette partie-là est montagneuse. Et en fait, il y a des nappes phréatiques perchées et il y a plus de 1000 ans, les gens ont commencé à creuser des galeries souterraines. Ces galeries ressemblent à ça. Et en fait, chez moi, il y en a aussi. Donc, on a commencé à en rénover. Ça, c'est en Afghanistan, c'est chez moi. On a commencé à les rénover depuis 5-6 ans avec un réseau d'artisans qui essaye de retourner à ce système de gestion d'eau qui fonctionnait dans tout le district. C'est à peu près 75 000 habitants qui profitaient de ce système-là. En fait, avec les bombardements soviétiques puis américains, beaucoup d'entre elles se sont effondrées. Et donc, on a commencé à les reconstruire. Et vue du ciel, ça donne ça. Et en fait, souvent, on a l'impression que c'est des puits, mais ce n'est pas des puits en fait, qu'on creuse. La galerie, en fait, elle est creusée, mais au bout d'un moment, on manque d'oxygène et il faut retirer la terre. Donc, en fait, on creuse ces puits verticaux pour à la fois évacuer la terre et à la fois recycler l'air. Et donc, ça permet aux gens de respirer en même temps qu'on creuse. Donc, cela, on a mis plusieurs années, mais à l'origine, après, c'est des très anciennes galeries. C'est des galeries qui ont pris plus de 100 ans à être construites. Mais il y a de ça des siècles déjà. Et je vais peut-être passer un peu là-dessus. Et donc, moi, ce que ça m'a révélé, en fait, ce fonctionnement-là, c'est lorsque les systèmes de gestion d'eau sont révélés à la surface, en fait, la société civile n'est pas uniquement consommatrice de l'eau. Donc, c'est pas uniquement… je ne pense pas que le bien commun se limite uniquement à la question d'une ressource qu'on partage au sein d'une communauté. C'est aussi lorsque la société civile est actrice de la gestion de cette eau-là. Et donc, d'un coup, je me suis rendu compte que chez moi en Afghanistan, dès que l'eau finalement sort, les systèmes de barrage, les systèmes de roues à eau, les systèmes d'irrigation sont visibles. Et donc, la société civile, dès que ça bloque, en fait, un enfant de 11 ans est capable d'aller réparer la chose. Et donc, il y a une concertation sur la manière dont on va gérer l'eau. Bien sûr, je pense que c'est aussi lié à une question d'échelle, mais là-bas, pour 75 000 habitants, ça fonctionne, ce qui est quand même assez colossal. Et donc, je me suis dit, lorsque je me suis intéressé aux mêmes enjeux dans l'agglomération parisienne, les systèmes de gestion d'eau sont extrêmement opaques. Nous, on a mené une enquête là-dessus. Et en fait, du cours d'eau jusqu'à notre robinet, on ne sait pas du tout comment l'eau arrive. Et finalement, c'est un espace qui est réservé à des technocrates. Et donc, la question que je me posais, c'est comment faire en sorte que les cours d'eau qui traversent nos villes ne soient pas uniquement des infrastructures, mais soient également des espaces où le citoyen peut prendre le droit d'emprunter l'eau. La question de l'emprunt, moi, m'intéresse beaucoup. C'est juste de la prendre puis de la rendre. Et donc, j'ai commencé à travailler sur des systèmes de machines à eau. Parce que la machine est un système qu'on peut voir souvent et de révéler tout le dispositif technique de la machine pour que les gens puissent se rendre compte de comment ça fonctionne. Et donc, un des premiers dispositifs sur lequel j'ai travaillé, c'était avec un groupe de personnes qui venaient d'arriver en France, des mineurs isolés qui ne parlaient pas français et dont la plupart avaient grandi dans des zones rurales et dont les parents étaient paysans. Donc là, ça m'a intéressé de travailler sur les savoir-faire de gestion d'eau. On s'est rendu compte qu'il y avait les mêmes systèmes chez eux et chez moi. Et donc, on a commencé à construire des cartographies tactiles parce qu'on ne pouvait pas communiquer par la langue. Donc, on s'est dit on allait convoquer d'autres sens. Et donc, on s'est dit qu'on allait cartographier et utiliser le toucher pour communiquer les uns avec les autres. Et donc, à partir de ces cartes-là, on a commencé à établir des chemins et des imaginaires de l'eau. C'était des ateliers très longs, donc je vais peut-être passer un peu vite sur la méthodologie. Je pourrais en reparler après si ça intéresse certains. Et donc, on a retracé ces chemins-là. On a recréé les chemins d'eau. Et à travers les chemins de chacun, on a constitué un bassin versant artificiel. Donc ça, c'est des ponts altimétriques. Et pourquoi le bassin versant nous a intéressés? Parce qu'en fait, chez moi, comme chez certains d'entre eux, les limites administratives des régions ou des districts ou des provinces sont liées à la question des limites naturelles. Ce qui fait beaucoup plus sens, c'est-à-dire qu'en fait, une communauté dépend d'un bassin versant et donc de la même eau, entre guillemets. Et donc, on a commencé à les sculpter, à les tailler, je vais passer un peu vite, et on a commencé à retravailler sur ces questions de pente et de descente d'eau. Et on s'est dit comment donner toute son importance à la goutte d'eau. Donc, on a travaillé sur le poids d'une goutte d'eau. Et donc, ça, c'est tout le système. Je vais passer un peu vite. Et donc, ça va raconter un peu le poids d'une goutte d'eau. Les eaux, on les a récoltées à différents endroits. Je vais passer un peu vite dessus. Et donc, c'est ce parcours de l'eau, en fait. Et si on regarde bien, je vais vous montrer après. Donc, c'est vraiment du goutte à goutte. C'est très, très lent. Et il y a un moment donné, quand le petit bassin qui est là, qu'on voit sur la photo précédente, devient plus lourd que la matière minérale, il y a un axe sur lequel tout bascule. Et donc, il y a ce moment où en fait toutes les grues s'activent en même temps et tout ce système s'enclenche. Et donc, ce qui m'intéresse, moi, là, c'est tous les systèmes mécaniques et de pouvoir lire ce trajet de l'eau et comment est-ce qu'on met en récit, finalement, ces histoires communes et de gestion d'eau. Il y a un autre projet qui convainc un peu les mêmes imaginaires, alors on se situe, c'est pas loin de Arc-en-Seine, donc c'est l'endroit, on est à Saint-Denis, c'est au nord de Paris, et c'est un endroit où il y a ce bâtiment-là, et d'un côté de ce bâtiment-là, il y a la Seine, donc le fleuve parisien, et de l'autre côté, il y a un canal. Et ce qui m'a intéressé, c'était de me dire comment est-ce que on emprunte l'eau, on prend le droit de la prendre et de la rendre, mais on la prend du canal et on la rend à la Seine. Et donc, en la faisant traverser un bâtiment. Et au premier étage de ce bâtiment, en fait, c'est un centre d'art, entre guillemets. Et il y avait une exposition sur les systèmes de gestion d'eau. Et donc, l'idée que je proposais, c'était de faire en sorte que l'eau devienne la ressource et la matière première de toute l'exposition. Donc, tous les artistes se servent de l'eau du canal. Mais il fallait la ramener. Donc, on s'est dit que plutôt que d'utiliser des pompes à eau ou des systèmes, on allait mettre en place c'est des roues à eau. L'ancêtre de ces roues-là, c'est les norias, du coup, qui existait en Mésopotamie. Et donc, c'est un système tout simple où on fait tourner les roues, les godets se remplissent, ça alimente les rigoles, ça se déverse dans un autre bassin, il y a une deuxième roue qu'on active, etc. Ça passe dans la salle d'exposition et ça ressort de l'autre côté, ça tombe dans les égouts qui retombent dans la Seine. Et derrière, en fait, les artistes travaillaient le cœur de l'exposition était autour de l'eau comme ressource. Et donc, chacun s'est servi de cette eau, pouvait la détourner. Donc, les canons étaient troués dans tous les sens, etc. Et ça, c'était le propos le plus intéressant pour moi, presque aussi, au-delà de l'emprunter, comment est-ce qu'on l'a fait boire. Du coup, on a fait boire l'eau du canal. Donc, c'est un canal industriel. Le canal de Saint-Denis est extrêmement pollué. Et ce qui était intéressant, c'est que moi, je connaissais celui assez bien, mais ceux à qui je les ai envoyés, c'est Innovaya. Du coup, c'est un labo scientifique. Lorsque je leur ai envoyé l'échantillon, ils m'ont dit que l'eau était 6 fois plus polluée que l'eau la plus polluée qu'ils avaient traitée. Et donc, ils ont su me raconter ce qu'ils voyaient. Donc, ce qui était intéressant, c'est que l'eau raconte l'histoire de l'environnement qu'il y a autour. Ils m'ont dit qu'ils retrouvent beaucoup de microbes qui sont liés notamment aux déjections humaines ou aux déchets humains. Et en fait, ça raconte le fait qu'il y avait un camp, quelques mois, enfin une bonne année avant, il y avait un camp Rome ici. Et donc, ils savaient lire ça. Ils savaient lire, bien entendu, tous les métaux lourds qui existaient. Mais après, il fallait, je pense, faire des carottages parce que tous ces déchets partaient au fond du canal. Donc, par un système qui leur est propre, eux arrivent à dépolluer l'eau et du coup, on la fait boire aux gens également. Le quatrième projet, c'est à Clichy-sous-Bois. Donc, Clichy-sous-Bois, c'est un territoire, c'est une ville qui est à peu près à 12-15 km de Paris, à vol d'oiseau, mais qui a 1h30 de transport en commun. C'est un territoire qui est très enclavé et qui est malheureusement connu pour les révoltes urbaines et sociales de 2005. Donc, c'est un territoire qui a eu des grands ensembles qui ont été construits, mais qui ont eu une gestion privée. Donc, avec le temps, il y a eu un abandon de cette gestion, il y a eu une forme de ghettoisation, et il y a eu 30 ans d'abandon des politiques publiques à ce moment. Et donc, aujourd'hui, il y a un chantier qui est immense, vraiment, depuis 10 ans et qui va continuer pendant 10 ans. Et en fait, les enfants qui sont là, ils grandissent dans ce chantier. Et donc, moi, ça m'intéressait de voir quelle est la vision de l'enfance sur un territoire en transformation urbaine. Et donc, j'ai constitué une plateforme, un outil, qui était cette table qui circulait, sur laquelle j'organisais pendant 6 mois des ateliers. Mais j'étais en lien ni avec des scolaires, ni avec des associations. Je mettais la table et puis, au fur et à mesure, j'avais constitué une communauté d'enfants chercheurs, je les appelais comme ça. Et donc, on a analysé, on l'a déplacé dans plein d'endroits, on a fait intervenir des artistes, on a fait des performances. Et donc, on a on a interrogé les incohérences liées à l'aménagement de ce territoire à travers le regard de l'enfance. Et il y a cette rivière sur laquelle on est. C'est un aqueduc, enfin, la construction là qu'on fait, elle est sur un aqueduc souterrain qui a été construit sous Napoléon pour amener de l'eau potable à Paris. Et en fait, dans les années 70, lorsque le pôle Marne-la-Vallée s'est développé, Disneyland, enfin Val d'Europe Agglomération, a racheté cette eau qui était une eau publique et elle alimente le parc Disney. Et donc au début, les enfants trouvaient ça super cool que ça alimente Disney. Et puis de fil en aiguille, lorsqu'on a continué les ateliers, etc., eux étaient à la direction artistique. Ça pour moi c'était très important. Moi je leur donnais juste des informations. Et en fait, ils ont pris conscience que leur eau allait vers quelque chose qui était, moi je le dirais lucratif, mais à d'autres. Eux, ils considéraient que c'était leur eau. Donc on a commencé à travailler, moi je leur ai demandé de travailler sur 3 concepts sur lesquels eux seraient directeurs artistiques de l'œuvre. Et donc le premier c'était le château d'eau. Donc ça c'est le projet final. Le premier ça a été le château d'eau, pour garder leur eau comme une symbolique. Ensuite je leur ai demandé de travailler sur quelque chose qui leur semblait impossible à réaliser. Donc pour eux c'était de renvoyer l'eau vers le ciel. Et donc, on a créé cette grande charpente en hauteur. Et le troisième, c'est la gravité. Parce que la construction de l'ingénieur de Napoléon, c'était Belgrand. Et en fait, c'est une prouesse d'ingénierie. C'est 10 cm de dénivelé pour 100 mètres de long. Et donc, l'idée, ce n'était pas de faire non plus un espèce d'objet muséographique figé. C'était quand même qu'on s'amuse un peu dessus, mais comme un symbole. Et donc, la gravité s'est transformée en toboggan. Et ce qui m'a intéressé par la suite avec cet objet, c'est qu'en fait, il s'est construit pendant 3 mois. Et auparavant de ça, il y a eu 6 mois de recherche commune avec ses enfants. Donc moi, à un moment donné, je l'ai abandonné. Et donc, quand l'allumage de tout ce système-là, c'est un circuit fermé en eau, mais il y a une pompe. Et l'allumage dépend d'un centre d'art qui s'appelle les ateliers Médicis. Et en fait, quand ils éteignaient la machine, ils ont commencé à manifester au pied du centre d'art avec des panneaux, etc. Et donc, c'est la directrice qui descendait pour leur allumer. Et il y a des moments où ils voulaient l'allumer à 22 h. Et donc, il s'est passé des choses assez super. C'est qu'ils ont commencé, enfin, l'eau et l'électricité, c'est pas super, mais ils ont commencé à brancher d'eux-mêmes tout le système dans les caves des immeubles dans lesquels ils habitent. Donc, il y a comme une communauté d'enfants qui gérait par elle-même cet objet-là. Je vais passer un peu vite. Et du coup, j'en viens, et là, il n'y a pas d'image, j'en viens à Roubaix. En fait, moi, j'ai été invité il y a, je crois, 1 an et demi à m'interroger sur une éventuelle intervention ici, sur le canal de Roubaix. Et donc, on a commencé différentes choses, notamment à construire des micro-machines, puis on a été un peu bloqué par la situation qu'on connaît. Et donc, je vais sans doute travailler sur les 2 prochaines années sur un dispositif qui, à la fois, comme tous ces projets, convoque une histoire locale, mais qui devient, dans le même temps, un espèce de dispositif critique sur aussi ce que peuvent, sur les enjeux autour de l'eau. Et donc, il y a plusieurs sites que j'ai repérés le long du canal, sur lesquels je vais potentiellement commencer à construire des machines à eau sur les périodes à venir, et notamment une espèce de plateforme sur l'eau. L'idée, c'est de se poser sur l'eau et pour potentiellement commencer à avoir une plateforme de recherche. Et cette plateforme de recherche, je la veux comme un outil qui permettrait de faire le lien entre des dispositifs artistiques et scientifiques. Donc, si, je pense que c'est le bon endroit pour en parler, si cette plateforme peut être mise à disposition de chercheurs, d'enseignants, d'étudiants, de gens qui veulent expérimenter des choses, elle peut tout à fait l'être. Donc, c'est vraiment le début d'un projet qui se lance. Et je ne sais pas encore quelle forme il va prendre, parce que les formes dépendent vraiment du propos. Mais voilà, s'il y a certains d'entre vous que ça intéresse de partager sur cette plateforme ou sur ces machines à venir, je suis là. Je crois que j'ai fait le tour.
Bien, merci à tous les deux pour ces 2 présentations. On va maintenant enchaîner avec un temps de d'échange, de questions-réponses. Je ne sais pas si on a des questions sur le chat. Donc, on va alterner entre questions en ligne et questions ici en salle. You can also ask your question in English if you want. So we have no question online. And here? Yeah?
Une question sur la tension sur les ressources en eau, le fait qu'avec le dérèglement climatique, on risque même ici sur le territoire de manquer d'eau. Et du coup, je vais notamment poser la question à vous dans vos démarches à la fois artistiques, très sociales, etc. Si vous abordez du coup cette question directement ou indirectement de la rareté de l'eau et du regard qu'on peut avoir sur l'eau, notamment dans nos sociétés où en fait l'eau est peu visible, elle est confiée à des ingénieurs, elle est technocrate, elle passe dans les tuyaux qu'on ne voit pas, et donc on a oublié un peu l'eau, et on ne se pose pas la question d'où elle vient quand on ouvre le robinet, c'est tellement automatique. Et du coup, voilà, ça m'intéresse de savoir si vous avez travaillé, fait des choses sur cette dimension symbolique de l'eau et sur cette dimension précieuse de l'eau.
Oui, j'ai l'impression que c'est à la fois une question et une affirmation. Moi, je suis assez d'accord sur ce qui a été dit, mais c'est tout simplement pour ça que moi, je n'ai pas du tout envie de créer des dispositifs moralisateurs, et c'est plutôt des dispositifs qui engagent des actions concrètes, et c'est pour ça que les machines m'intéressent. C'est que juste révéler la ressource, c'est déjà se permettre de la toucher, de l'emprunter et de la comprendre sur comment est-ce qu'elle fonctionne. Parce qu'effectivement, dans l'agglomération parisienne, c'est le réseau de gestion d'eau qui est de plus en plus, qui est géré par Veolia SES en grande partie et extrêmement opaque. Et prendre le droit à un moment donné de toucher ces réseaux-là, d'en sortir une ressource pour la montrer, je pense que ça permet de comprendre d'où elle vient, comment elle fonctionne. Et j'ai l'impression que c'est par ces dispositifs-là qu'on peut être plus concerné, mais peut-être que je me trompe, mais moi, c'est par cette voie-là que je fonctionne en tout cas. La boire, la toucher, prendre le droit de se mettre dessus, de se baigner dedans, toutes ces choses-là. Mais il y a toujours cette question de responsabilité et de normes. Je crois que et moi, je travaille beaucoup dans les espaces publics. C'est peut-être l'endroit qui m'intéresse le plus parce que c'est l'endroit de tension qui convoque tous les enjeux qui affectent notre société contemporaine. Et donc, je crois que l'eau a aussi est un enjeu à cet endroit-là. Donc, sur le fait de pouvoir la boire, de pouvoir la toucher, etc., il y a tout de suite des craintes et des peurs sur est-ce que quelqu'un va tomber malade. Mais c'est pour ça que le rapport art et science est pour moi très intéressant à cet endroit-là, pour pousser la chose un peu plus loin.
Another question? Online, no?
I don't have a question right now, but I think maybe you are longing to have a drink. So in the bar, there are drinks available. You can have some, and you can also just ask your questions and discuss amongst each other in a more informal environment. But I want to ask maybe one more applause for Feda and Paola for their lectures. Thank you.